All right, what's up, everyone? We are going to be doing kind of, a case study breakdown of my trade on AVGR. I've really been liking more of these kind of, trying to find these multi-day movers, these actual good trending stocks. It's been kind of hard out here for, biased long small cap day traders. There's a lot of different spikes you could try to trade off, like buying the breakout or chasing the volume, chasing the momentum. But as far as like actual good trends that have sustained moves, they are kind of few and far between. But these are the ones that I really kind of do the best on. I have my trades pulled up right here. One sec. You can see I just closed out the trade today. Overall, walking away with about $4,200 in profit. I actually took two trades in this, and you can kind of see the thing with TraderView is that it doesn't really do well with after hours executions because like it just doesn't have the chart there. Like you'll see there's this one just up here at $15, just under $15. That was from after hours the day before. But yeah, overall, I took two trades on this. The first trade was actually a trade that I took on the 18th, and I got into it in after hours, hoping for it to hold this key support level. And then the next morning it broke down, so I sold into the break even, and then it went higher. So I'm gonna like do my best to kind of walk through, I guess, the psychology of how I feel about, selling a stock and then it going up without me, because that's totally fine. Because if it is actually a good setup, you will likely get a chance to get back in. It might be a higher price, but for me, it's all about systematic trading, having a plan, sticking to the plan. And sometimes that might mean that, initially the stock is going to break down through your level. You might have to get out because that's just what the system requires. But then, like I said, if it is a good setup and it goes higher, if you just stay patient, don't get involved with your emotions, don't chase it, you will find another chance to get back in at a pretty good price. So you can see, I got long in like the 8s to 745. I sold into the break-even retest the next morning. And then that same day later on, I got back in just around 850s, 820s, and took some partials in the 960s, $10. $14 in after hours, and then it sold the rest right in the mid 12 range. So yeah, we're gonna just do it, just kind of a whole, I guess you call it, I don't know, like a case study. Just breaking down everything about AVGR, how the stock popped up in the first place, the interesting kind of things about it, so that hopefully you at home, the viewer, can get some good insight of how I make my trades. So let's just jump right into it. Why don't we? Right. So first off, as far as the first green day goes, there's some things about AVGR that you just always have to kind of do as like a, like a pre-trading checklist almost. And so for me, whenever a stock is first green day, I really don't want to get involved until I actually see shorts trapped. So that's a very big thing. And, one of my more common strategies, I guess, is to use like the pre-market high as new support. Now, keep in mind, we had like 3 hours of lessons within TradeBuddy about this. So I'm going to try to not take too long on these concepts. But so basically for AVGR's first green day, you have to kind of think of moves in like buying waves and selling waves. So this all overall, if you just kind of zoom out, you can see this is all one big buying wave, right? Where it had that news drop and it spiked from like $4 into like around $8 per share. And then it went for that pullback. And in general, if you go watch or if you've seen my other videos, you know that in general, I like to do this thing which is called buying previous resistance as new support. So you'll see a stock will have a spike, it'll do a pullback. And then if it can do that next leg higher and break out, then I would be interested in trading that previous resistance as new support. I can't draw. Something like that. So then, if it does pull back, you can buy the dip, and it might continue. So all day for the first green day, it didn't really even have that potential set up yet. So it was a cool move. And one thing you'll just kind of learn more and more as you get more into like actual systematic day trading, or I guess just in the way that I trade, that you're going to see a lot of stocks that will have big spikes, but there's no real way to trade them yet, right? Because I personally don't care about trading and, scalping 25, 50 cents per share. Sure, some people can do it. I can't. It's just not my style. I want to find these good trends where I can make dollars per share and potential supernova moves. That's what I like. Like, yes, if we look at the stats behind the stock, like, yes, it is a low float. It's a very low float, right? 674,000 share float. That could become explosive if shorts get trapped, but we don't really have any proof or like anything that's showing us that shorts are trapped yet. So I was just kind of watching, right? There was really no trade here at all. And then you can see it sold off into the close. And I was like, yeah, I mean, it doesn't really look like anything special. And the one thing I said in my chat was, if it can break out over $8, then yeah, it's a massive squeeze. And actually, let me post the clip of when I was recording this live, when we were watching it break out, because then you can see at that point, I was super interested in it. And that's when I started to plan a trade. Now, AVGR squeezing. Holy. Any short that swung overnight is now, now we can confidently say any short that swung this thing, they are fucked. Like, right? They are totally fucked. And so now it's like, okay, there's a very good potential, right? Using this previous resistance as new support. So now it's like, high alert. This is a trade. This is now actually a trade. Obviously, wait for this candle to close because you don't want it just to be a big stuff. But yeah, I mean, if it can pull back to 830s, I'll be long. So yeah, we had this big breakout. And right off that, you can just imagine, right? So all of my trading is based around the idea of shorts being trapped. So if you're a short seller or just a seller in general, right? A lot of shorts probably saw this rejection in the morning. And then their plan was to try to short into a bounce. So like right here, for example, they're going to want to short that area, risking this high of day break. And they're hoping for it to be an all-day fade. And the ones who weren't too greedy did get paid off. I mean, you can see this rejected near 8, sold off down to 6, and they could have made $2 per share. But of course, there's always those greedier traders who want to get more, who maybe they want to hold it overnight because it's a junk stock, it's up for no reason. And those are the ones who got absolutely blasted out of this trade. I heard some reports of some traders who were running some chat rooms who were down like 100K plus just on this spike alone. Now, I don't know if those claims are valid. I have no idea who they are, but that's what I've heard. So once that breakout happened, that's when I was interested in saying, oh man, this thing just lit up. Anyone who shorted today and hasn't covered is now trapped underwater. So I started to make a plan. And overall, we can kind of see, I'm not going to dive too much into this analysis, but overall, we know that most short sellers who traded this thing probably were short anywhere from, 840s down to this area near like 760s. So my thesis for this was, all right, as long as that area between 8 and 760s can hold as new support, anyone that is still holding short, if it bounces again, they're going to be underwater again, right? And they're going to likely want to cover, and that's going to fuel the squeeze. And that's going to cause that domino effect of a short squeeze supernova. So that's what my plan was. I got long it in after hours, as you saw from the TraderView post, and then I held it overnight. And then next morning, it gapped down through $7. Wasn't looking that great. I mean, sure, I was super hopeful for it, but it just didn't really fit my strategy anymore. So I quickly sold back into the break-even retest as it spiked up early in the morning, right near like 7 a.m. market time. I just exited right at 763. I took a small loss, but overall was just trying to sell back into that resistance because it seemed like it was topping out. And then as the day progressed, it kind of stabilized. And then as you can see, it did kind of squeeze back up again, right? It showed us that, wait, you know what? That was just kind of a failed breakdown. It's actually squeezing back up. So I was like, okay, that's fine. I'm not going to chase into this. I'm just going to kind of reset, refocus. And now that it's a kind of multi-day mover, one of my rules is whenever a stock is a multi-day mover, I want to use more of the hourly chart. So if we go to that, 60-minute chart, and we just kind of zoom back here. Actually, I got to bring it up on Thinkorswim because it's not too clear. Because Thinkorswim has like the extended hours price action that E-Trade doesn't. I just don't really like using charts on TOS for explaining because it's not as intuitive to me. But that's fine. So you can kind of see here, right? If you look at this hourly chart here, let me just delete all the levels, clear everything off, make it nice and clean. All right. So now we know it's day 2, right? So it's right here. We had that continuation move. And one of my favorite things to do is use the hourly line chart. And then once again, just kind of go back into the same planning process. Previous resistance is right there near 831. So that's my entry price. My max loss for my trade planner that everyone uses it in TradeBuddy, just down below 670s. So I know I want to go long off 831. My max loss is just break below 670s. First partial target just at $10 because that is the next main resistance. But then the next main levels that we have are just from historical lines from the daily chart. So like, for example, the daily 200 moving average, that's up at 1250. We have some other levels too. Like if you look back at, I'll just show real quick. If you look at the daily chart, you can see up here, there is some significant pivot point right here. There was a big support bounce near 15 and then also big resistance near 15. So we knew that, 15 is kind of a significant level and that can be resistance. And that'll, just make more sense as we progress. So then, I just got right back in. Sure, technically, if I held my original position and I broke my rules for following my plan, then yeah, I would have been long this like $1 per share cheaper. But you can't base your trades off the what if. Like everything about trading is so much based around this idea of like data-backed confidence. So if you want to be an actual profitable trader, you need to make a strategy and legit just go into a spreadsheet and spam research like dozens or hundreds of different stocks that have fit what you deem to be a strategy. For me, it's previous resistance as new support. Get all the times that this has happened on individual stocks, get the entry price that you would have taken, get the exit price you would have exited, and get all the different stats like high of day, low of day, close, blah, 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 right? Get stats around how this system works. And then at the end, you can do some calculations to see, okay, well, on average, this trade works out about 50% of the time, but the winners make 3 times the losers. So that is a profitable setup. These are the type of things that you need to do to be a trader. You can't just like jump in and hope every day it's going to be different, because trading is really about that like kind of long-term profitability, right? There's a common saying that like it's kind of like gambling, but you have to be the house, right? The house doesn't care if one spin on roulette loses them $1 million because they know over the long run, the edge and the odds are stacked in their favor, so they're going to make money. That's really how trading is. So whenever I sell a stock into that retest for break even because it broke my system and it goes up without me, it's not like a pain point. It doesn't like offend me. It's just like, okay, well, that's just the way it is. I'll find a new setup. No big deal. So yeah, that's just kind of like the mentality behind it, because I've had some questions about psychology and stuff. Psychology, lots of traders will like throw around that they're like masters at psychology or whatever. Really, like the best way to fix your psychology or your mentality for trading is to focus on data-backed confidence. That is the secret, because that fixes all the emotional issues that you'll have down the road as you begin, trading big size and stuff. And I'm not trading big size, trust me. I'm still a pretty small fish in the sea, but I am profitable, and that's what really matters. So, I mean, you can see during that day, so during that second entry, it was like the easiest thing. I mean, you can see all day, it just skated along and held support super, super well. And I'll bring back up my trader view. And you can see like during that day, I just took little dip buys here and there, just kind of filling into that 850s area. And then I just held it, as long as previous resistance holds its new support, it's overall bullish. That's my mantra. And then as it spiked up, started to take some partials. So locked in some right near the 960s, then sold some more as it broke over 10. That was that first hourly chart resistance area from this range. And then from there, it got into after hours. So we knew that, okay, there's two main resistance points now. There's one near 1250s and there's one near 15. So I just let the stock spike up. I had some limit sells to take some profits off at both those points, locked in some profits. And during this spike, so like this is where it's really hard for like traders to try to do this kind of longer term swings, I guess. It's not long term, but like if you want to trade the big move, if you want to get the big spike ups, you have to be willing to hold through the big spike downs, or I guess the big sell-offs, because one does not come without the other. So like during this breakout, right? Broke out, bounced off of 830s, ran to $15. As this was happening, and I was doing a webinar during this, I said, you know what? This could very well pull back, right? We're hitting big resistance. It's probably going to pull back. And for me, it could pull back as low as this previous resistance point right here, right? Because this was the previous resistance. It broke out through that, made a new resistance up overall in this area here. So after it does that, you have to just follow the plan, right? As long as previous resistance holds as new support, it still is bullish. So like one thing I tell people is that if you're not willing to hold through a $5 pullback, and you know that because you're not like an experienced trader or you just don't have the confidence, if you know that you're going to panic as it pulls back on down, you might as well just sell as it's spiking up, right? You might as well just lock in all your profits into the resistance. Now, ideally, you learn to get past that. But that's like one of those things about being a trader where like you have to kind of take control of your own actions, right? I know that I can hold through big pullbacks. I've done it many times. I had a trade just a few months ago where I held through like a $9 pullback and then it went up $20 higher, right? It is what it is. Because I know that as long as the chart builds up, it's overall progressing in the right direction. So next morning, sure enough, it pulled back and you can see it perfectly bounced off that previous resistance as new support. Now, once again, we knew that this is now new resistance, right? If you look at the line chart, we know that this is the next main resistance point right near 1260s. So because of that, I did lock in another profit just into that point because we know, hey, it is resistance. It could reject there. Hopefully it doesn't. That'd be great. But if it does, I sold into it. So it spiked up in the morning, locked in some more partials. Once again, a double top to me isn't like a surefire thing of like, oh my God, it's topped out, right? The only way that I see tops is failed breakouts. That's when I see the trend shifting. So here, just on this, right? Even though it just bounced up and rejected 1250, I'm not gonna have a hard stop on like the break below VWAP. To me, it still is, as long as $10 holds support, it's fine. I mean, it could pull back, it could make like a cup and handle, it could double bottom off of support, doesn't matter. As long as it holds 10, it still is fine. Sure enough, we did make that cup and handle, spiked back up again, was building up some strength, and then here you can see it broke out. So after this breakout, now I'm saying, all right, great. We have that next breakout. Now it needs to hold this kind of 1285 area as new support to continue. And as the time progressed, notice how all this, I'm based off the hourly chart, right? I haven't used the 1 minute chart once. The 1 minute chart does not allow you to trade these big swings. Trust me, I used to try it. And then you can see, sure enough, in after hours, we sold off back down. And I didn't like that look. I mean, we just had that failed breakout on the hourly line chart. And I chose to start selling into this point. And I'll post my screenshot here from my chat where I mentioned that, I guess it was yesterday. I sold some more because I just didn't really like it, right? It was kind of a failed breakout. So I sold half of my remainder. I held half just in case, because obviously there's that kind of greed aspect. But by this point, I was mostly out of the trade. And then next morning, sold off back down, was more just showing that kind of overall head and shoulders look. And once again, the head and shoulders is just a fancy way to say that previous resistance, after a failed breakout comes in, you will likely see this level act as resistance. And that is like the point to sell. So this morning, I had the limit sell waiting at 12.55. Market spiked up. I sold into it. And now, as far as I'm concerned, this trade is done. I do believe we have topped out. You can see we're seeing some selling come in. And the only way that I would be interested in this stock once again is just if it broke out over like 13.8. If it could do that, same thing as what happened a few days ago. I'll just put a new trade. I'll get back in. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. It really is just about, having pure confidence in whatever trading setup that you have, whatever style that you like to trade. I love these kind of more charts that trend on the hourly chart. I don't like just buying random 5-minute chart breakouts. It hasn't really been a hot market anyways, so I've been really selective on what I want to trade. And all I need is like just a few of these a month, and I'm chilling. Don't really need much else. So yeah, that's the video for today. If you have any questions, leave them down below in the comments. If you want more content, more lessons about trading, look at the links down below in the description. I have a 14-day free trial of the Tradability community where we have obviously the chat room, daily webinars. I do pre-market and post-market recaps every single day. So check those out. If you have any questions, hit me up. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one.